Correct me if I'm wrong. What is a politician's job? What are our legislatures supposed to be doing every day? I was under the interpretation that they are supposed to work with and listen to their constituents, that's us, the people, in an effort to identify problems within the community for which they serve. Remember, they serve us. From there, they're supposed to work with other local legislatures and politicians to develop plans and policies and programs to help mitigate those issues around the community in an effort to improve, reduce, or eliminate the problems without imposing on any of our constitutional rights. Am I wrong? If I'm wrong, please comment. Please take the time to troll me and leave a detailed explanation of what it is they're supposed to be doing, because that's what I thought they were supposed to be doing. When Bill 5078, the high-capacity mag ban, was proposed, it stated that gun violence is a threat to the public health and safety of Washingtonians. That statement is true, but intentionally misleading. This bill, which makes it seem as though our safety is in imminent danger due to the 10 deadliest mass shootings since 2009, all involving a large capacity magazine, even though they took place in other parts of the country. This somehow justifies violating constitutional rights here in Washington, because it seems that our politicians are more concerned with their own personal agendas than pursuing actual change based on actual facts pertinent to our state's issues, even at the cost of undermining the constitutional rights of the people that live here. The bill cites civil unrest as a reason to validate the ban of high-capacity magazines, as it enables an operator to shoot large quantities of ammunition without the need for a mag change. They then follow up with a story about an individual carrying out a shooting in 2014 at Seattle Pacific University, wherein the shooter ran out of ammo and needed to reload in order to continue. During the reload process, the shooter was tackled and subdued. The bill then goes on to explain that the time it takes to reload enabled the victims to quickly act in an effort to restrain the shooter. This instance is demonstrated as justification for the ban, as it would limit shooters to a 10-round mag capacity. In turn, this mag change would allow citizens to disarm an active shooter, like it did in 2014. This statement, though, again, is misleading and leaves out key points, as well as contradicting itself. The shooter in 2014 was wielding a double-barrel shotgun. Those take far longer to do a reload on than a semi-automatic rifle with an external box magazine. Any time that you would have with someone wielding a double-barrel shotgun and they're doing their reload of single cartridges, that time is going to be far longer than that of a box mag. So this time that they're talking about that you're going to have, you're not going to have that. It's a bad supporting argument to make. With or without this ban, it would not have changed anything about the incident. Continuing on that line of thought that they so eloquently put together for us, the same defensive measure in a moment of a reload could be used against a law-abiding citizen who is obeying the law. Every 10 rounds, the assailants would then have an opportunity to quickly disarm you and continue about their way, and most likely greatly harm or kill you. In addition, the criminals set out to harm you will most likely have high-capacity magazines because, well, they don't abide by the law anyways. This means that at the onset, you, the everyday citizen, the law-abiding citizen caught in civil unrest, are now at a severe disadvantage in the fight for your life, because you're limited to 10 rounds, whereas the criminal is not. So this brings me to my next question. If the need for the ban is due to civil unrest and social tensions, does this then mean that once the unrest and overall civil disobedience subsides, that this bill will be repealed? And if so, who makes that determination? Is it the same people? The same elected officials who sought to all but lock us up during COVID? I'm just curious. Another question. Why are we using statistics and cases from other states to dictate how we legislate here in our state? Because those top 10 mass shootings since 2009, the deadliest mass shootings, those all happened in other places in this country. They didn't happen here in Washington. Are we trying to be proactive? If so, why haven't we tried to be proactive about our mental health issues in our state? which amount for over 75% of our gun violence alone. These magazines are in common use, and the ability to purchase them should not be banned from law-abiding citizens. Per our Second Amendment rights, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Exactly how it is stated. The word arms is capitalized. If you look at it, you go and look at the Constitution of the United States online, that word is capitalized to express the importance and to indicate all arms. This is why it's pluralized. It's not just arm or weapon, it's arms, which would mean, let's take it all the way back to 1776. If you had a musket, that meant the bullets, that meant the powder, the wad. Okay, you weren't denied access to any of that. You could, if you had the money, you could buy as much as you wanted because your Second Amendment defends that right. If that wasn't bad enough, now our elected officials, having had a taste of corruption and power, are at it again with HB 1240. They got away with infringement the first time and now seek to do it again and will continue to do so if allowed. HB 1240 is our latest assault-style weapons ban. Leave it to them to take an already ambiguous term, assault weapon, and make it even vaguer by saying assault-style weapons. This bill also predicated on the fact that our health and safety are in danger, and yet they would rather pass legislation that infringes on your rights instead of pursuing actual policies or programs that could literally affect change. This bill also uses misleading information, which cites cases from around the country except in Washington. The only numbers in it that are specific to Washington is that during the assault weapons ban, which was in effect 1994 to 2004, mass shooting fatalities were 70% less likely to occur. What they conveniently left out was the information about mass shootings. So let's kind of, for a second, dive into shootings in Washington, school shootings and mass shootings since 1983. Over the last 40 years, since 1983, we should be able to see some sort of a trend. Fact, between 1983 and 2023, there have been 24 mass shootings and 13 school shootings. 22 of the mass shootings involved handguns and or lever-action rifles and shotguns. Of 37 total shootings, 4 of them involved an assault weapon. 9 of them did not offer all of the details surrounding the actual weapons used. When you look at the fact that mass shootings only account for 1% of gun violence in Washington state, and then bear in mind the number of mass shootings in the last 40 years, you can see that mass shootings involving an assault-style weapon account for 1% of 1%. It begs the question, where is the risk to the health and safety of Washingtonians that both bills purport? There is a reason why these bills don't cite any evidence from Washington state. It's simply because there is no factual evidence to support the emergent need for these bills as the AG and the governor would have you believe. Now, all the law-abiding citizens are prohibited to purchase not just high-capacity magazines, which would offer them an ample opportunity to defend themselves during civil unrest against multiple attackers, which, as we have seen in recent years, is not completely out of the question. Law-abiding citizens are now prohibited from purchasing firearms that possess the effective means to protect themselves during such crises. How is this good? How is this helping reduce gun violence? When all they are doing is limiting law-abiding citizens from being able to protect themselves in such tenuous times. I don't get it. At what point are we the people legally allowed to stand up against these fear-mongering politicians who clearly have a thirst for power and control over the residents of this great state? The politicians, more specifically, the AG and the governor, if I could be so bold, who seemingly conspire to get this through the House and the Senate, drafted these bills and thereby have demonstrated an ability to coerce their fellow lawmakers into agreeing with them through misleading information. This created a potential threat to the safety of the people of Washington as outlined in the verbiage, which is factually inaccurate as it points directly to assault weapons and high-capacity magazines under the pretense of mass shootings, when in fact our biggest issues are suicide, homicide, and domestic violence. These bills are therefore arbitrary in context and based on facts that have nothing to do with the gun violence in Washington state. Furthermore, the continual pursuit of this ban shows only their agendas are fueled by personal opinions and not facts. The question is now, how is this not oppressive to law-abiding gun community here in Washington? How is this not similarly representative of tyranny by definition? The bills and the actions of the AG, as well as the governor and whoever else voted yes to these regulations, are obviously being unreasonable with this or any other violation of our constitutional rights. If we as citizens of Washington aren't actively seeking the removal of the AG and the governor based simply on these latest infringements, then what else are we doing except further allowing them to push us around? I'm tired of the bullying. I'm tired of bad policies. I'm tired of Inslee. And I'm tired of this attorney general. These folks have blatantly violated our rights based solely on misinformation presented intentionally to mislead and serve their own personal agenda, instead of seeking to educate the people, empower them, and help them cope with mental illness. They chose instead to pursue their own interests above our constitutional rights. Enough is enough. Here is my proposal, because it would be unfair of me to be critical of somebody, to only point out the issues that we are having without offering any ideas on how we could change things, right? If the answer to gun violence isn't banning firearms, then what is? Well, in order to fix any problem, you need to identify the root cause first. For gun violence, we can see clear patterns emerge. These patterns are where we should be placing focus. With gun violence, this means we need to address the following: education, mental health, and access. So here's my proposal. I am a concerned parent. I also happen to be trained in firearm safety. As a concerned parent, I choose to actively educate my children on the dangers of firearms. This means the proper use and storage of all firearms. I understand this is not something all parents have the ability to do. However, we already have institutions in place that curate the educational process for us. I'm not saying they're perfect, but it's an option. In the not too distant past, firearms education was taught in schools. I am a firm believer that this will help change the culture of the future by providing the children of today with current and accurate information about the proper storage of and the danger associated with firearms. If education is the greatest power we can bestow upon anyone, and a firearm is the greatest self-defense tool anyone can possess, then it becomes clear that education surrounding this issue is more important today than it ever was before. Long-term change is only possible by incorporating the youth of today. The importance of education cannot be stressed enough. Firearms safety and education is important because it gives context, a frame of reference, and a deeper understanding of the importance of life, the fragility of the human body, and the negative consequences of negligent discharges or shootings. The victims are an afterthought for shooters and often express deep regret afterwards. If the information little Johnny gets on gun safety comes from his or her PS5, then we are all failing as a community to properly educate our children. The education aspect of this is even more important when we begin to consider the unbridled access children have these days to information. Information without context can be deadly. The media doesn't exactly help in this arena either, giving the shooter a platform they don't deserve. The victims are almost always passed over for more information concerning what firearm was used and who used it, what pronouns did they prefer, or how were they bullied in school. Then what we have is a young, usually male, disenfranchised loner seeking attention with no real understanding of consequence, who then goes out and exacts his or her anger on others. Being cowardly, they most often choose gun-free zones. They literally state so in their manifestos, because they are soft targets, in that they won't typically meet any opposition during their rampage. This brings us to mental health. The first problem is incentive. If we want to encourage people to seek help, then we should applaud them as a community and offer moral support. If we instead choose to immediately remove all of their firearms from those seeking help, then we're actually creating a disincentive to seek it. Mental health programs should be made more affordable based on a case-by-case financial situation, much like food stamps and WIC. This should make it easier for all to seek the help they need. A large percentage of shooters are young people between the ages of 13 to 24. This means a more concerted effort should be made to improve the mental health outreach programs within the schools and universities. Sadly, this will not eliminate mental illness, but it will have a noticeable impact on our suicide rate, and that is a goal worth pursuing, since it accounts for over 75% of gun-related deaths in Washington every year. This leaves us with the safe storage or access aspect of the issue. The research shows that a vast majority of firearms used in mass shootings are obtained through illegal means. Our best way to combat this is to incentivize current and future gun owners to purchase a safe. A safe provides excellent storage for all dangerous weapons, but they are usually pricey and therefore not often purchased. If there were a program that allowed people under a certain income bracket to apply for a grant to purchase their first safe, this would act as an incentive for gun owners to obtain appropriate storage for their firearms without infringing on anyone's rights by forcing them to purchase a safe. This could also be accomplished by incentivizing gun stores to sell safes by awarding them a tax break for so many safes sold in a year. Or a gun store could offer a reduced rate on a safe if the initial purchase of a firearm exceeds $900. A good safe helps keep guns out of the hands of criminals by reducing access, but it also reduces access to those who seek to do harm to themselves. I'm going to return to the education aspect of all of this just one more time and address adults. Education is important from a youth perspective, and even more so from an adult perspective, as they are usually the ones tasked with the safety of their loved one. Again, the question becomes how we pass on education without infringing on the rights of the people. It comes down to incentives. One way this could be done is by offering a free voucher to a 4-hour class upon the first purchase of a gun. Attendance is not mandatory but encouraged by stating if you can show proof of attendance, then an additional 30% off of any safe would be afforded. A class would be available during the week, or if class size is large enough, then the weekend could also be an option. This would encourage people to purchase a safe while also encourage them to take gun safety and education courses. Education, mental health, very important. We're also addressing the access to the firearm, and all three of those have to be dealt with. Those are the things we need to focus on. These ideas are simply that. They are ideas I've come up with over the years and have yet to see but be put in place. I'm not a college graduate like any of our upstanding elected officials, and yet to me, these approaches to gun violence seem to be a logical approach based on actual facts. The sad fact is that you'll never truly be rid of violence, and therefore you'll never be able to pass enough legislation measures to rid gun violence. All that happens is rights to defend yourself are slowly stripped away and eroded. If the end goal is maintaining your rights as citizens while offering a logical approach to gun violence, then you have to consider the information as it pertains to your specific situation and not the situation of others. You can't compare one state to another because they are inherently different. Even though they are the same, much like you can't compare one country to the next because their ideals and values are different. Therefore, the causes behind the issues are rooted differently in each citizen. The last thought I have on all of this is this. How can we allow a governor to remain in office after violating our rights when RCW 43.01.020 clearly outlines the oath in which these individuals take upon taking office? In fact, they can't take office until they've taken this oath. The oath is as follows: shall before entering upon the duties of their respective offices take and subscribe an oath or affirmation in substance as follows: I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of governor to the best of my ability. That is the oath verbatim that our governor took, and these bills that they have passed as of late directly violate our rights. How is that legal? How can you take that oath and then sign those bills? Both bills either lie to the residents and create laws built on false pretenses, as well as violate our constitutional rights. Enough is enough. This is ridiculous. In closing, the only way to meaningfully attempt to reduce gun violence has to be a tiered approach with many systems in place to address each of the underlying issues. Only then will the culture change. Only then will we make a real difference.